I just passed the Azure 900, the Azure Fundamentals certification, and I had to go through a lot of content. The Azure Fundamentals might seem by the name that it's something simple, something reduced, it's basics, and although it doesn't dive deep into every single core service that Azure has and every single thing that you can do with the Microsoft's cloud, it is an enormous amount of content, and it's very difficult to go through all of it and really find what you need to go through back again to kind of like reinforce what you're trying to learn. So today I want to show you a few of the strategies that you can use and things that I used in order to pass the Azure Fundamentals certification. Again, it's a tremendous amount of content, but I believe that by the end of this quick reference video, you will be able to have like a strategy in place so that you can attack all of these massive amounts of knowledge and information, have it in a way that you can go through it again in a quick sort of like reference guide as well, kind of like this video, but that will help you get like refresh your memory, get good understanding, solid fundamentals for the AZ900 video. Let's take a look at how that's going to work. What things we're going to be doing today to kind of like leverage that a huge amount of information and my experience going through it all and taking and passing the Azure Fundamentals certification. All right, so here we're in Microsoft Learn. Actually, it's docs.microsoft.com, but like it doesn't matter how you get here. You can actually type in docs.microsoft.com and navigate your way from here to the certification information. I'll show you the two ways. Here you can do also learn.microsoft.com and then click Explore Learn, and you would arrive essentially to the same place. So once you arrive here, you're gonna see certifications right there at the top on the top bar. So you're gonna click there and you're gonna browse certifications. What we're looking for is the fundamentals. So fundamentals, it's for Azure. So I'm gonna scroll here. I'm gonna click on Azure on the left. That's going to filter out what we're looking for. But there's several, there's 79 results. We are going to be filtering that a little bit further. So what I'm gonna do is keep scrolling down, and I'm going to change or select the levels of how advanced is the certification that we want. In this case, we want the beginner one. I'm gonna click that. And now you can see there's just 12 results. In those results is the exam AZ900 Microsoft Azure Fundamentals, which is what you wanna be doing today. So you're gonna click that, and it's going to give you a brief overview, which you should be already familiar with what's going on here. Now, here it's where we want to actually start digging into how is this going to work for you. Like you want to have like a strategy in place, and I'm gonna tell you how that strategy is going to work. So far, we haven't seen anything. Nothing out of the unusual, but I'll show you a couple of things that will definitely help you pass the exam. You need to scroll down, and I'm going to briefly show you a little bit of what's going on here. Here's how to schedule the exam. There's a couple of options here. You can do in person or online. I personally did the online. That may or may not be available for you. The skills measured is pretty interesting. It tells you the percentages that you might want to learn, so that like the weight that is going to be assigned to these concepts for the Azure Fundamentals certification. Now, Microsoft has everything you need right here with the learning paths. And the reason I want to show you the learning paths, it's not because like there's something particular about the learning paths or that there's some piece of knowledge that you might need for your certification, which yes, you will have to go through all of the learning paths. Each learning path has modules associated with it, and the certification is split into 6 parts. You can see here, describe core Azure concepts, core Azure services, core solutions, security and network, and you have here identity governance, and finally cost management and service level agreements. So six paths, and when you start going through them, you're going to quickly find out that you're going to have some challenges, and I'll show you why that is. So if we start here with Azure Fundamentals Part 1, you start here and you'll see here that, like, if I'm going to scroll down, all of the Azure Fundamentals, all of the learning paths associated with it will have this section here of the learning paths in the series. So here we're in part 1. I already told you there's 6 parts, and you need to complete all of the learning paths in the series to prepare for the AC900. Now, again, this is nothing that you probably are not aware already. However, if I keep scrolling down here, you will see that there's several modules associated with it. So in this case, modules in this learning path, you have Introduction to Azure Fundamentals, 43 minutes, and there's 8 units. If I keep scrolling down, you have Azure Fundamental Concepts, 6 units. Then you have Architectural Components, 7 units, and all of these keep adding up. So now we are into kind of like the first part, which is describing cloud concepts, and you're seeing already 3 modules with their separate sections. So I'm going to drill further. I'm going to start here in the Introduction to Azure Fundamentals. I'm going to click Start, and you'll see that, you get an introduction. What is Azure Fundamentals? Why should I take Azure Fundamentals, and how to prepare for the exam? It gives you some information, and then you're gonna click next. What is cloud computing? Okay, so finally, I'm gonna click there. Finally, we're diving into actual content that you're gonna get graded on when you're taking the certification. So I'm here with what is cloud computing, and it has 9 minutes worth of reading, and now you're seeing information that is critical, is essential for you to pass the certification. You'll find here some certain key items that are going to be useful. Why should I move to the cloud? Well, you start seeing some interesting details. Now, what's the problem with this approach? Well, this is one website. You can see here at the top, this is docs.microsoft.com/learning modules, intro to Azure Fundamentals, what is cloud computing. So it's a single web page. This is how learning paths and learning modules work. They're essentially a single page with a summary or a reduced piece of information that you'll have to be able to go through in just a few minutes. Why this might not work for you? Well, because when you want to really go through the content again, this is very highly time consuming. It's not efficient. It's not an efficient way to pass the exam. So what you want to be doing here is to essentially, you definitely have to go through all of the learning paths, and then you have to go through all of the learning modules, and then complete everything, including the knowledge assessment. Here you dive into like Unit 3 of 8, but we can go and try to get to the knowledge check, and then you get some questions, you try to answer those correctly, and then you move on. What you need to do, what I recommend to pass this certification, to study, like first go through all of the learning paths, go all through the learning modules, and then I want to show you a thing that you must do in order to get that. Like, what is that thing? You need to go back and create a summary. You need to sit down and write a summary of all of the key differences and aspects of all of these pieces of knowledge that are going through in the learning paths and learning modules. And I'll show you what I did here. I have a GitHub repository. Now, in this GitHub repository, I have everything in private. Why I have it in private? Because my way of creating a summary might not be the one that works for you. That's one. And the other one is like, once I create a summary and Azure Fundamentals makes a change, I'll probably get out of date. So this is something for you to do, but I'll show you how I did it and why it works. First of all, I created 6 sections. Describe core Azure concepts, Azure services, core solutions, general security, identity governance, and Azure cost management and SLAs. So the repo structure is basically very simple. It doesn't even need to be a repo, but in this case, I created one in GitHub. And then what you need to do is, you create the repository, you create your 6 markdown files, and you start summarizing. You start adding learning paths and learning modules for each section. So let me click here. So say, for example, cloud concepts. And then at the very top, I add the link for the learning path so I don't get lost. and then I start summarizing, right? In this case, identity cloud competing benefits. I use this acronym. I use SHAD, which is scalability, high availability, elasticity, agility, and disaster recovery. These are things that you're gonna see in the exam, in the certification. So you start going through, and the way I'm suggesting you should do this is to create a title for each service or each high-level concept that you're gonna see, and then you write a definition. Right? So you have the definition, and then you start having some features as well. So here you have types of cloud, some expenses, describing capital expenditures and operational expenditures, what those mean. Perhaps if we go back here and check something else, like say, for example, core solutions, you'll start seeing more services. You can see here I added some notes where find out about days and hours of SLA. I'm going to keep scrolling. Now you're going to see features of certain services. So I have Azure Machine Learning. What's the definition and what are the features? Because they're going to tell you, hey, like, tell me like how are in this particular service, the questions you're going to see is like, tell me like, does this feature map to this service or not? And that's what's going to happen. So by having these in plain text, you're going to be able to quickly review. Like you've gone through the learning paths, you've gone through the learning modules, and then you're going to be able to go through and review that information in a summarized way that's going to be quickly for you to go through the content. So once you've done that, once you've completed absolutely everything, I want to keep you to keep in mind something that you might find as you go through the learning paths. I'm going to show you right here. One thing that is going to happen is that in the test, you're gonna, or actually when going through the learning paths, you're gonna see very highly similar services, and part of the test is going to ask us like, hey, what's the difference between this one and that one? And you're gonna be like, oh man, like these are really really similar. So you're gonna have to capture key differences. So I'm gonna show you here what I did, and this is a perfect example. You have Azure IoT Hub and Azure IoT Central. These are very, very similar services, but they have some differences where you might want to choose one versus the other one. And in the learning paths and in the learning modules, they'll tell you this is different. Why would you choose IoT Hub versus IoT Central? Well, because of these things. In this case, I made a note: key difference with IoT Central. Between IoT Hub and IoT Central, IoT Hub has more control, less managed, like no dashboard, and you get telemetry analysis. In Azure IoT Central, well, you have less control, it's more managed because it has a dashboard included, and this is actually incorrect. Like this note is incorrect. Like you don't necessarily get the telemetry analysis. You do with Hub, but like here, I'm writing the features. And here I'm writing also the features of IoT Hub. So it gives you a very good way. Now, finally, what I want to tell you about all of these is that although I'm not necessarily sharing this Azure Fundamentals repo, I've created a repo where you can actually have like sort of like a reference of the things that I've just told you about. This is public, it's AZ900 reference, and you can see that in my account. I'm going to share that also in the description of this video. So the AZ900 reference guide that you're going to see here is basically go through everything that I just told you. Get the certification details by clicking on the docs.microsoft.com, download the skills outline, go through the 6 sections or the 6 parts, through every single learning path and every single learning module, so that you can have like a basic, good understanding, solid understanding, and then start summarizing. And then I give you the sample repo structure right here, where you can see I have cloud concepts, core services, core solutions, security, governance, compliance, and finally cost management. Once you create the repository with the 6 markdown files, as I've already told you, you start summarizing, adding the learning path and learning module for each section, which you can see is useful so that you can cross-reference like, oh, like let me add more detail to this, and then you want to go back. Well, you're going to use those links that you're going to be adding to those summaries. And then capture services, definitions, and any key differentiators. This is essential because it's going to give you like superpowers at the time where you're going to sit down with the test. And finally, I give you a sample section. You have like your main topic. So say, for example, IoT services, or it might be the main topic might be machine learning, and then you have service name, like a specific service name, and then you get the definition, and then the features, feature 1 or feature 2. And here I give you like the IoT Hub and IoT Central. So that's it. You should be able now to have everything you need to pass this certification. Like, you have like a good strategy. This is a quick reference. I'm not diving into detail into every single thing that you need to know, but I'm giving you a strategy that I use to pass the Azure Fundamental certification, and I did it on the first try. I think it was great. I think I felt like I was really prepared, but it wasn't until I did the summary so that that I felt like really prepared, that I could just pour through all of my notes and really review everything and ensure that I had everything that I need. Hopefully you take this advice, it works for you. Perhaps you make some changes and see if you find a new way or an interesting way to try and make it even better. And I hopefully you pass the exam and feel great about it, and you have now a good strategy to study.